see each of you here this morning. Today is the day for our series on mindful lessons from the Gospel of Luke. As Luke begins his Gospel, he says, "Inasmuch as many have undertaken to compile an account of those things which were accomplished among us, which were handed down to us from those eyewitnesses and servants of the Word, it seemed fitting to me as well, having investigated everything from the beginning, to write it out to you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may have an exact knowledge of the truth which you have been taught." And so we have been studying from Luke once a month for this year, looking in particular at those events in the life of Jesus or teachings from Jesus that I believe really help us to live a daily life as Jesus would have us to live. And out of all of these lessons, I don't think there is one that is more important than the passage and the lesson that we will look at this morning. How many of us are as thankful as we ought to be? How many of us all express our appreciation as much as we should? This young man here thanks God for this turkey and dressing which he has provided and for the broccoli that the devil slipped in. At least he is thankful, even if it came from the devil. Or how about this cartoon with Calvin and Hobbes? Calvin's writing a note, thank you note to Grandpa for the crayons that she sent at Christmas time. And Hobbes says, "Wow, that's bronze." Calvin says, "Yeah, I always send Grandma a thank you note right away. Ever since she sent me that empty box with a sarcastic note, just wondering if the Postal Service is still working." We try to teach our children, send thank you notes. Send thank you notes. Sometimes life gets in the way and we forget. But we need to be thankful. And we need to show, express our appreciation. Turn to Luke chapter 17 if you have not already done that. If you're using the Bible in the pew, it's page 876. 876, Luke chapter 17, verses 11 through 19. Because we need to be reminded that we need to be thankful for our blessings. Greta Weissman is a woman, a Holocaust survivor who spends time in a Nazi concentration camp. And she wrote about the time where the women would stand for hours and hours in line waiting to get the food that they were provided. And she said one day she noticed that the concrete had split open and a single flower had poked its way through. One spot of beauty in that dark, ugly, heinous world. And she said those several thousand women would do everything they could to walk around that flower and to protect it because they were thankful for that little spot of beauty. One of the differences, I think, between Christians and non-Christians is that Christians have the guidance to be thankful even in the midst of suffering. To be thankful is divine. To be unthankful is from the devil. And in fact, someone said that being unthankful is worse than revenge. Revenge is giving evil for evil. Being unthankful is giving evil for the good. And so we really need to focus this morning on this need that we have to be thankful, to show our appreciation, and to express our appreciation. In Romans chapter 1, 20 and 21, the Apostle Paul writes that among those characteristics of those people who left God is the characteristic of being unthankful. Particularly in the context where he talks about homosexuality. Part of the reason why men gave themselves over to other men and women gave themselves over to women is that they were not thankful for the order of creation that God has set. And in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 and 2, Paul says about becoming apostasy away from the truth, becoming apostasy away from Christianity. Paul says one of the characteristics of that is being unthankful. So it is very important for us, as Christians and as God's children, to realize that we are created to give thanks to God. We are created to praise God. And so I want us to look at this event from Luke chapter 17, beginning in verse 11, so that we might be motivated more, perhaps, to be like even that one lone leper who came back and gave thanks to Jesus and thereby praising God. Let's read first of all verses 11 and 12. Luke chapter 17, verses 11 and 12. While he was on his way to Jerusalem, Luke writes, Jesus was passing between Samaria and Galilee, and as he entered a village, a 10 leprous men who stood at a distance met him. So the first thing we observe is that Jesus is passing through the area of Samaria. And there was an animosity, there was enmity between the Jews and the Gentiles of that day to a great extent, a deeply felt animosity. There was a prayer that was prayed among the rabbis at least at that time. God, I thank you that I was not born a woman or a Gentile. And so the Jews despised the Gentiles. The Jews did not believe the Gentiles had a hope and a prayer of going to heaven. Not as they were. And so here we've got the area of Samaria, and we've got a group of men here, 10 of them now, who are lepers. And the word leprosy in the Bible is a broad term that describes a number of skin diseases, at least some of which were contagious. And so the law of Moses required that if you thought that you had a leprosy, that you were to go to a priest, and the priest would declare you clean or unclean, and if you had leprosy, then you had to live in a segregated camp outside of Israel, so that you would not cause somebody else to become unclean. And if you were entering the marketplace where there were other people, crowds, then you had to cover your lip and cry out, unclean, unclean, so they would be able to get away from you and not come in contact with your leprosy. You lived a life of isolation. And so this individual is unclean, so to speak, number one, from his race, from his racial standpoint, and number two, as far as the Jews were concerned, number two, he was unclean because of his leprosy. Physically, he was unclean. You know, all of us need help. Everybody needs help. Nobody can be born, live, and die by themselves. We have a house payment to make, so we need a job. We have problems with our health, and so we need a nurse or a doctor. We need to have our carpets cleaned, so we need a carpet cleaner. We have to have help. Speaking specifically of Christians, but the principle is broader. In Romans 14 and verse 7, the Apostle Paul says, nobody lives to himself, and nobody dies to himself. And so we all need help. When we were in Romania, living in Romania, and we decided to buy an apartment back in 2001, Christian every once in a while would make some derogatory comments about religion. But basically, they were good people. And they stepped up and they helped us. When we went to the notary, to the real estate agent, the notary, to sign our papers and buy our apartment, they helped us understand the laws and helped us not make mistakes that other foreigners buying land there, property there in Romania had made. And then several years later, when we decided to sell our apartment, there they were to help us. And they never expected anything in return. All through life, we have people who step up and help us. Everybody needs help. Everybody has problems. But then we see next in the text, verses 13 and 14, that in fact we serve a master who is full of mercy. Look at what happens, verses 13 and 14. The 10 leprous men stood at a distance, verse 12, and they raised their voices, verse 13, saying, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us. And when he saw them, he said to them, go and show yourselves to the priest. And as they were going, they were cleansed. Jesus is a master who is full of mercy. The word mercy is found in the Bible almost 300 times. The word mercy means the feeling of emotions that results in action when you see the suffering or the affliction of somebody else. And so what these leprous men are wanting is for Jesus to share with them His kindness. Now, leprosy was viewed in such a horrible way that the reasoning was that only God could cure leprosy. And so for these men to come to Jesus, believing that He can help them, suggests to me that they saw something divine in Jesus. Now, in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 5, Jesus has already healed a leprous man. And so maybe these 10 have heard that Jesus could perform these types of miracles. And so they come to Him and they say, Jesus, have mercy on us. 2 blind men had done the same thing to Jesus back in Matthew chapter 9. Son of David, have mercy on us. And in the broader context there, Jesus looks out over the crowd and He sees where they are like sheep without a shepherd. And He has compassion on them. He encourages His own disciples to pray that God will send forth laborers into His vineyard. But of course, He also has mercy on those 2 blind men, and He heals them of their blindness. Jesus is full of mercy. Of those 280 times or so the word mercy is found in the Bible, 21 times the word is found in the Gospel accounts. Jesus is full of mercy. Hebrews chapter 4, verses 15 and 16. The Hebrew writer says that we do not serve a high priest who cannot be touched with the feelings of our weaknesses, but was in all areas and all things tempted as we are, yet without sin. And because He was tempted in all areas as we are, and yet He is without sin, therefore, verse 16, the Hebrew writer says, let us come before His throne